So feel free to ask questions. So we haven't actually started talking about grief and loss yet. We were just
It's really good
talking about
timing, actually. Yeah.
yeah, we were talking about self-compassion and just the conference. Mm.
Taking care of
But
yourself. But,
yeah,
tonight's topic is grief and loss. So,
Yes, an interesting one. A hard
well,
one.
I think even what we were just talking about with the self-compassion and showing yourself self-compassion actually ties in really nicely with grief and loss because one of the things that doesn't happen very often when we lose, I mean, when people think of grief and loss, traditionally they think of a loved one, as in a human being lost. But grief and loss is any significant loss. And that can even be inanimate. It can be, you've lost your childhood teddy bear, which you've had for your whole life, and suddenly it's disappeared. It can be animals, it can be absolutely any significant loss. It can even be, what will often be classed as a disenfranchised loss, which is things like famous people dying or TV characters dying, things like that, things that we have an emotional connection with.
mm,
So an example of that is that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was on for 7 seasons from 1997 through to 2005. Now, there was a whole generation of girls that grew up with Buffy the Vampire Slayer being one of the main empowering female influences that they were seeing on television in their prime empowerment years, as in their teenage years and into their early 20s.
mm.
We see, I've actually seen several clients that when that show finished, they went into mourning because they were never going to see it again
Wow.
because it was such a significant character and presence in their life through such an important period of time in their life that they felt understood, they felt seen, where in other parts of their life they weren't getting that, but they were getting it from this TV show. So when it finished, and then these same people have watched that same show at least the whole season, the whole 7 seasons, at least once a year since that. Because it's such a significant part of their life.
Mm.
So that's an example of, and people will say, but that's just a TV show. It's just a TV character. She's not real. It's like, it doesn't matter because the meaning for me as a person, or the meaning for the client is that was a significant influence in my life. That was a significant presence in my life. It's irrelevant whether she's real or not. Your childhood teddy bear is just a childhood teddy bear to some people, but to some people, that's one of the most significant relationships they have in their childhood.
Mm.
So grief and loss is one of those. It's a really interesting topic because it is so personal and so individual. One person can lose a parent and not be impacted by it at all because they might have had a horrible relationship with the parent. Another person might lose a parent and be absolutely devastated for a very long time because they were so close to that parent. So we can never say grief and loss is done like this because it's a unique and individual process. But what we can do is we can look at grief and we can look at loss and say that everybody feels it for something at some point in their life.
Mm-hmm.
There might be multiple different things that happen. There might be small things that really get you and bigger things that don't. There's recognized grief, loss of a parent, loss of a family member, loss of a friend, loss of a human being. And then there's often things that we call disenfranchised griefs, which are things that aren't recognized by other people as being valid. So the loss of a wild animal in care, the loss of a pet. It's just a dog. I'm sure people have all heard that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Loss of a TV character, loss of a I don't know if you remember a book called Scarecrow, um, by Matthew Riley. He's an Australian author. It's an action movie. When I read that series of books, it is like 20 years ago, so I'm not doing any spoilers, but I'm going to give you a spoiler alert anyway. Um, one of the main characters in that series of books died. And because of what was going on in my life at the time, I was absolutely devastated by that loss.
Mm.
It was a book character, for Christ's sake.
I remember, Francis, that reminds me so much of watching McLeod's Daughters, right? I loved that show when it was on. When Claire died, one of the main characters,
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Yeah.
I actually bawled my eyes out and it was uncontrollable. And I'm sitting there thinking, fuck, this is so irrational. But I think it was just relating to other things that
Hmm.
were going on.
So, Mel, have you got one?
Oh, I would agree with McLeod.
Do you remember that episode? Oh my God.
Oh, we loved that show. That was classic. That was
Yeah.
yeah, that was so good. I'd agree with you there. There's so many. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So
Yeah, I
for me, it's there's two that get me. One is the two. I don't have to see the rest of the film at all. If I see the two old people on the bed in Titanic with the water rushing in around them,
Oh, yes.
I don't have to have seen a single other scene of that film. That scene will get me every single time.
Yeah.
And the other one is it's a Buffy. It is a Buffy episode called The Body, when Buffy's mum dies. And the whole episode has no background music whatsoever. And Buffy walks into the house and she sees her mum on the couch and she just goes, Mum, Mum. And then she says, Mummy. And it's just like, oh, every
Yeah.
time. Because I that didn't get me at the time. But now when I watch that, I think of my mum.
Yeah.
And that's an example of disenfranchised grief because nobody can really necessarily relate to that. Excuse me for a second. Nobody else can relate to that because that's my experience. That's I can't even watch that episode anymore
Mm.
because of it. So we have things that will set us off, and it's quite often things that are unconnected to the actual grief that we're experiencing. So McLeod's Daughter probably sets you off because it's reminding you in some way of something else that's happened.
Mm.
In some way, it is connected to something else that you have had experience with. So it's not always the actual thing like Joyce Summers or, Claire. It's the other things that are happening in our lives. And and grief can be compounded as well. So if we've experienced lots of grief and lots of loss that we haven't processed, something like a TV character or a book character passing away will be the final straw that brings it all up and
Mm-hmm.
brings it out. So it will become much bigger because we've got all this other stuff that we haven't processed yet. Now, I don't have, oh, do you have whiteboard privileges, Sarah, still?
I would not have a clue.
Okay, I don't have whiteboard privileges anymore because I've used all my whiteboards up.
I probably do, but how do I get that happening?
No, don't worry about it. I'll use a makeshift whiteboard.
I'm not
So
super tech savvy, clearly.
yeah,
I said I'm not super tech savvy, clearly.
that's all right. So this is a person. This is a
Yes.
person. When we experience a grief, it takes us over and consumes us. Like this.
Mm-hmm.
And as you'll notice, there's little bits that have leaked out the sides. Now, in the first 12 months, always the worst, those little bits that have leaked will touch in the growth. So first birthday, first Easter, first outing, whatever it was. Okay, so I'm coming up for the 1 year anniversary of my Chihuahua Fifi.
Mm.
And on her anniversary, which is next Tuesday, I'm having a tattoo of her paw print as my memorial.
Oh.
Okay. I always decided I would have it on the 12-month anniversary.
Mm.
But as we grow around the grief. The grief doesn't get any smaller.
Yep.
Okay. Now, as you can imagine, we have other griefs in there of varying sizes because that's life and life isn't fair. But what happens is we start incorporating them into our growth.
Yep.
And we will continue to grow a little bit like a tree. And we will continue to incorporate those things into who we are. Grief doesn't get smaller, we just grow around it. And every time we get hit by a grief, it gets embedded in that new layer. And as we grow, we just incorporate them. So when we leave them unprocessed, they just stick there. But because they're part of who we are, we need to process them. We need to understand why they upset us. We need to understand why they don't upset us. So we need to just make sure that we really start taking care of ourselves and showing ourselves that compassion that we were talking about earlier, and saying, these are the things that I need to do. These are the things that I want to do. And these are the things that I've got to do. And allowing yourself to grieve your losses is really important. And that includes animals that we've had in care for 3 days, 3 months, 2 years, when we lose them. And wildlife carers are, I would say, on the whole, terrible at grieving their losses.
Mm-hmm.
And I quite often get told, I'm looking at Mel's face and she's going, because I talk to wildlife carers all the time, and I very often get told in a variety of different ways, they're not mine to grieve, they're wild animals. I'm just looking after them short term. But the key component there is looking after them, caring for them, feeding them,
yep.
Toileting them, doing all the things that we do with babies, doing all the things that we do with our pets. We're doing all the things that we do because we care. We rescue, rehabilitate, release, but we don't do any of that without caring, mm-hmm. and caring deeply. So grief and loss, as we know, is absolutely it's a thing. It's not going to go away. It's always going to be a huge part of what wildlife caring is. Grief and loss is, what is it, like 70% or something is grief and loss. So we've got to learn to grieve it and not just go, and believe what those other people say by saying it's just a wild animal.
Or I don't have time.
I don't have time to grieve. I'm too busy. I've got 24 bottles that I've got to put together. It's like, you got to make time.
Yeah.
Got to make time. A little bit like the self-care time that needs to be made.
That.
Yeah, that pesky thing called self-care, and drinking your beverage while it's still hot first thing in the morning, and but grieving's that time. You can use that time to grieve if that's what you want to do, because that's still something that you're doing for yourself. It's still something that I mean, the amount of wildlife carers who say self-care is selfish. I haven't got time to do self-care. It's like, it's not selfish if it's because it's looking after yourself. You cannot do this job, and it is a job, it is work. You cannot do this job if you don't look after yourself first.
Yep.
And grieving, allowing yourself to grieve and acknowledge the losses is part of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Mel, what's happening for you? I'm watching your face. I know you've very apparently strategically placed yourself in front of the lights so you're in silhouette, but that doesn't mean I can't see your face because I can.
I'm a professional now.
Yeah, because I'm a professional, exactly.
Oh no, I'm super glad that you guys are doing this because it's such an important aspect of what we're doing. I used to be able to process all of the losses really well and had so much time and actually, you know, like you said, acknowledge each one. And then I find the busier we get, the time constraints are just so, it's just so hard and I know like we need to process it, but it's like, yeah, it's just hard to it's hard. It's hard to do it. And then all of a sudden one of them will just hit you and you're like, whoa, and you haven't done the work for the past ones either. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and then they all come tumbling out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And you're like, where did that come from?
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you have trouble, when you have not you specifically, but when wildlife carers have trouble sleeping or they can't function or they can't think straight or funnily they're crying at weird times and going, "Why am I crying?" And then they call us. And I'm like, yeah, uh, I know why.
Thank God for you. Jeez Louise.
Like, I know why. And then I say, well, how many losses have you had in the last 12 months? And they go, oh, I've lost count. How many have you grieved? None of them. Right. Okay, there you go. But I don't want to start now because I don't want to I don't want to start because if I start, I'll never stop crying. And my response to that is, well, physically, you cannot cry for longer than 6 minutes.
Mm.
And then you will stop. And then you might start again, but you physically cannot cry for longer than 6 minutes. So technically, you will stop. And when you stop, that's when you have to allow yourself to acknowledge what's happening and why it's happening. And if you are so upset that you then start crying again, you need to process because it's not just going to go away.
Mm.
It's like it's like pouring water into your Wellington boot, and then you put your foot in. What happens? It just all squelches over the sides. And then you start walking and it just splashes all over the place and it splishes and splashes all up your leg. That's the best analogy I can think of for grief for a wildlife carer.
Mm.
I mean, what wildlife carer doesn't know what it's like to splish and splosh around a paddock full of kangaroo poo?
In the
Yeah, that
rain.
stuff gets everywhere. In the rain, that
Yeah.
stuff gets everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's what grief and loss is like. It doesn't just go away because you ignore it. It just gets deeper.
So what's the strategy for someone who says, I don't have time, or they've built up, or they haven't dealt with, past losses,
Yeah.
so they have a build up of,
So
however
the
many.
way I work with someone like that is I'll say, what's the one that's tipped you over the edge? Let's deal with that one first. Let's acknowledge that one first. But let's open that box. I'm not going to open any of the others. We're just going to open that one box first. And we're going to acknowledge it. We're going to tell stories. We're going to talk. We're going to, just like you would if you've lost a family member who you love or you care deeply about.
Mm.
Let's deal with that one first. And it might take 5 minutes, it might take 5 hours. Depends entirely on the length and the depth of the relationship. It's not a one one trick for everybody. So it depends entirely on what is it about that one that tipped you over. So I've had people who have literally had animals in care for like 35 minutes, literally picking them up, taking them to the vet that's tipped them over the edge. And then I've had others where the one that they've had in care for like 18 months has passed away, and that's been the one that tips them over.
Mm.
So you never know what is going to be the final piece of the puzzle, but we have to deal with that piece first.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go back and we go, okay, now which one? Let's do one at a time. Which ones do you want? Which ones do you feel like you need to grieve? Let's do them one at a time, not all together. There might be some where you can do a mass thing. So one of the things that I one of the things that I encourage carers to do is to build like a cairn in their backyard. If they've only got a small yard, build a cairn,
What's that?
which is basically a pile of stones.
Oh, yeah.
So you go to something like Bunnings or wherever, and buy a bag of stones, whatever size you want. You can get little ones, you can get bigger ones, and every time, depending on how many animals you're losing, and then you can literally build a pile. So in Ireland and Scotland and the UK, they used to use cairns to as markers for the roads. So you'd have one on the corner of the road, and it would be a direction marker. And the idea is that as the cairn gets bigger, each one of those stones represents a life. Now, if you're using small stones and you're losing a lot of animals, for instance, you're probably going to want to use smaller stones and start with a big base and work your way up. If you're only dealing with a small number of animals, then you can use larger stones and you can build one up. If you have enough space in your garden, you could build a meditation circle, which is basically like a small maze with stones. So you can line it out with string, and then you can place a stone every time you lose a life. And then you can also use that meditation circle as part of your self-care exercise. When you're in the meditation circle, you can honor the lives, and you can spend the time with the lives that you've cared for. There are other things as well, like you can use what we call psychotherapy techniques, like using sticks and twigs and leaves and things like that as well, where you can build them and then, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Rough them up afterwards. So you sort of build it and then you throw it away. So as you're building it, you're honoring the lives, and then you can brush it away at the end, and then you come back and you can rebuild it again. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it, but it's about giving yourself 5, 10 minutes a week, a fortnight, a month, however often you want to do it, to actually spend time with those lives. You can light a candle. I mean, that's what the candles are for in church. There's no reason why you can't light a candle in your kitchen. You know, you might have in veterinary clinics quite often, if somebody is having a dog or a cat euthanized or a pet euthanized, they'll light a candle on the front counter to let people know that that's what's happening.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, so if you walk in and there's a candle burning on the front counter, you're kind of like, oh crap, I might be a bit quieter because there's probably somebody in there, you know, having a really hard time right now.
Yeah.
So we can respect other people's time for that and feel that sadness, but we don't honor our own. So we're coming back to that self-compassion again.
Mm.
So, you know, I have a candle on my kitchen windowsill that I light once a month. And it's a light for about an hour. And that's my quiet reflective time.
Mm.
And I think about all the losses in my life.
It
And
sounds like
I let myself have a cry if I need to have a cry.
mm, it sounds like setting up some sort of a ritual, not a ritual, or
Yeah, it is. Well, it can be.
Remedy.
It can. Yeah, it's allowing yourself the space to
yes.
remember and honor.
But by picking something like that, lighting a candle, having a space, building something, it's like by committing to that activity, it's almost like doing a meditation on like or something like that, that it's something for you to do to honor those lives rather than just them swirling around in your head.
It's getting them out.
Yes. Yeah.
It's getting them out. It's allowing them out. It's allowing them, it's acknowledging. Because
Yeah.
when we keep everything in here, the way I talk to people around writing things down and getting things out is when we have stuff in here, imagine a thought like a steel pinball. And you've got a pinball machine in front of you, which is your brain, and you pull the lever and you let it go, and the pinball goes up the side and it starts bouncing around. But when you don't let it out, that exit is blocked. So it just carries on.
Yeah.
It's got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Except bouncing around in your head all the time. So even something as simple as writing down the name or the number of an animal that's been lost when you think of that animal is letting it out. It's acknowledging that loss. And acknowledging the loss is a huge part of processing the loss. Okay. If you are a wildlife carer and you're dealing with tens of losses in a month, you might just honor the losses of August.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's
But it's
probably
about
particularly
allowing yourself to. Sorry?
so that's probably particularly pertinent for those who do a lot of euthanasia.
Yeah, or rescues.
Yeah.
Rescues. Like if you're doing a lot of that work, hopefully you're doing a proper debrief after them regularly. But also you might want to do that exercise once a week.
Yeah.
I want to just sit down and acknowledge the losses this week. You know, there's been X number that I've had to euthanize this week. It's been a really tough week. You know, some of them were, some of them I'm happy that I was able to ease their suffering. It's literally acknowledging that. You know, or if you've lost an animal that you've had in care for a long time, it can be, I did everything that I could do. Time. I'm really sad that happened. I feel terrible that thing happened. It's about acknowledging and allowing yourself to actually acknowledge and witness the life of that animal. Because just the same way as we do with humans, it's not always gone to a better place unless you're a person of faith, in which case go you. But if you're not a person of faith, it's how you want to express it. And the other important thing here is not letting anyone tell you how to grieve. So if you really don't want to grieve, cool. That's your call. But there's going to be times when you're going to need to. You might not need to grieve them all, but there will be some that you will need to. And when that happens, allowing yourself to is really important.
Any thoughts, Mel?
Oh, I just yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. As far as how important it is to acknowledge every single one. They're all so different, and the situation is always different, and yeah, they're also special, and they're beautiful personalities, and it's like just to know that they mattered, and it's not like I hate the saying like, oh, it's just another youth, like get over it kind of thing. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that's that they all matter, like all of them. So
And
yeah,
it's interesting what you say there about they've all got different personalities. They absolutely do. Like you might have, you might have possums that are really, really sort of like docile and, will just do anything. And then you'll have another one that's really cheeky. And, you know, you might find that the really cheeky one you're not sad about at all, but the really quiet one you are, or vice versa. you know and that might, you might find yourself surprised next year that the really cheeky one is the one that's got you, just in the right spot, because you're going to respond differently to different personalities and different relationships depending on what else is happening in your life. If you're having a really tough time at work and this animal's seen you through a really tough time because you came home and you fed it every 4 hours, and you might have been taking it to work because you couldn't leave it at home and all that sort of stuff, that's going to hit you maybe harder than one that you only had for a short period of time before you sent it off to somebody else to care for it. So, and then it came back to you or whatever. You never know. It's not a case of being able to say, well, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never had to grieve, so therefore I'm never going to have to grieve, because every single animal, every single relationship that you have is unique to you and that person, that thing, that animal, whatever it happens to be. The relationship is always unique.
Mm.
And, you might have a husband, a partner, a child. You'll all experience that loss differently
Mm.
in the same household because your relationship with them is different.
It also doesn't have to be just related to death, does it? Like when you
No.
think of carers who raise a joey to a certain age and then pass it on to the next
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
stage.
yeah, absolutely.
Like you,
And that's one of the reasons why when I started talking about Buffy at the beginning, is that the loss is the loss is at any time. It can even be on release because
yeah.
you never know what's going to happen. That release, and I know that a lot of wildlife carers are like, oh, release is the best. But I fucking hated release.
Mm.
Hated it. Because you just kind of like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Like, and I went to a conference, a counseling conference a couple of years ago, and I spoke about Wild Talk, and I had this woman contact me, and she was like, "Oh, it's so hard. I foster cats. It's so hard." And I'm like, and she's, "It's exactly the same." I'm like, "No, it fucking isn't." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, if it doesn't work out for your fosters, you can tell the people that they've been taken by people, and you can say if it doesn't work out, bring them back. You can go and do a house check before you place that animal. You can get them to bring their existing pets to meet the cat before you send that cat home." I said, in most cases with wildlife, you plonk them out in the middle of the bush and you go, off you trot,
Mm.
and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you never, you might, you, unless you have a sanctuary where you release them and they come back and they come back and they check in and they come back for a feed and they come back and they show you their babies and all that sort of stuff. But even then, they're still a wild animal. And if they don't come back next year, you're like, where did Betsy go? What happened to Betsy? Or whatever they're called. There's always that anxiety with release. Yes, it's wonderful that you've been able to do that, but it still comes with a level of anxiety and absolutely comes with loss.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody process. I hated release. I mean, Wild Talk exists because of a release that potentially went horribly wrong, but I will never know.
Mm. Yeah.
And my physical and emotional response to that was, oh crap, I need to do something. If this is the response I have to a potential harm to the snake that I rescued and released, what's it like for people that are feeding joeys every 2 to 4 hours?
Mm. Yeah.
So, you know it's still loss. potentially.
Yeah.
See your face, Mel. You've got a sort of wry
Yeah.
grin on your
Do you have
face.
questions, Mel?
Oh, I in particular find it hard to deal with sort of the guilt that comes along with loss, even if it has to be, if it's a clear-cut euthanasia, there's still that guilt because you just feel like you could have done, like if it's a roadside, rescue, and you're like me in particular, I'm like, I should work harder to get signs, or I should like there's always that guilt attached to it,
Okay,
and it's
so guilt and grief, right?
mm,
Guilt and grief do not belong together. So I'm going to be a bit controversial here and talk about how we have control over our choices. And guilt is a choice.
yeah,
It is not an emotional response. Guilt is a societal pressure put onto us, and it is a choice. And I often hear people say, I feel guilty about, and I say, guilt is a choice. And they sort of look at me and they go, what? And I go, no, no, no. You did everything that you can. This is one of the, also another reason why proper debriefing is really important. Because if you talk about all the things that you did well and the things that you would do differently, and then you talk about your emotional responses to things, guilt never comes into it. It's only afterwards, when we've been stewing on it and that pinball has been doing this, that we then start feeling guilt. And it's usually because we haven't debriefed properly. It's because we haven't processed what has actually occurred. And then something gets said, something from our childhood, something that has been said to us sometime in the past is what then slips into place. And that's when we start feeling guilt. We're not born with guilt. We are taught guilt.
good old humans, hey.
So how
More
do you
fun.
deal with that? How do you deal with that?
How do you deal with what? Guilt?
Mm.
Well,
Because
what do you have to be guilty about?
it's easy enough to say, well,
What
that's
do you have to be what do you have to be guilty about?
well, but yeah, but that's your like when you're in a situation like Mel has described,
Yep.
it's hard.
And she's taken the correct actions.
Yeah.
So what do you have to feel guilty about?
I think it's more like I don't know why, but we just all wildlife carers seem to just blame themselves, even though like we're being
But is
so
that a
proactive
choice?
and
Blame
um
we blame ourselves. We blame ourselves. Process that phrase. We blame ourselves.
yeah, it's all in it's the writings on the wall, isn't it?
Yeah. You're
Yeah.
you're you're making that choice to blame yourself, even though you have done everything that you are supposed to do and that you can do.
Okay, so how do you change that narrative in the moment?
That's exactly how what I've just done is how you change that narrative.
Okay.
You have to start saying, I did everything that I can in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
This is why debriefing is so important, okay?
Yeah.
Because you can't say that if you haven't debriefed properly. Because you need someone to say, what did you do well?
Yeah.
What would you do differently? What would you do differently next time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the key learning here? Now what's your emotional response? Okay, that's the structure essentially. Okay. So once you've done all of that and you can actually say, well, no, I did everything that I could. I followed the rules, I followed the law. There's no way I could have brought that animal home. There's no way it could have been rehabilitated. So I know I did everything right. So therefore, there is no blame. There is no self-blame because you did everything you could, and there is no guilt.
Mm.
So if you suddenly start going, oh, well, I'm blaming myself, and oh my God, I feel really guilty because I didn't bring that animal home, you go, no, bullshit. I debrief properly. I know I did everything that I possibly can. So therefore, there is no guilt and there is no blame. And that's how you change the narrative.
But Mel,
It
you're
takes
also sorry,
it
go ahead.
takes it takes practice
Yep.
and it takes consistency.
Mm.
Okay. So, you know, you can do that one thing and you can do it well, or you can do other boundary stuff as well, because it is you crossing your own boundaries.
But also, Mel, you referred to, um, that you could have encouraged or you could have done the work to get more signage up, and I hear this all the time. People fighting for proper wildlife crossings on roads, more signing, petitioning council and parliament and trying to get more, signs up to slow the traffic down and that sort of thing. But that sort of stuff is, even though it's great to do it, it's out of your control at
Yeah.
the time when you're rescuing an animal. So
Yeah.
to pile that on yourself at the same time, like, it's you do what you can.
But they're right, exactly. So again, that blame and that guilt that I haven't done enough
Yeah.
is a choice because you have done everything that life, your life situation, your life circumstances, your time, all those things, you have done everything that you can with the time that you have to commit to that thing, right? So if you are, if you're looking after, it's a little bit like the same conversation that I have with people around I'm too busy, I'm burnt out. Okay, what's the maximum number of animals you can look after in a particular at a particular time is quite a common question. And they'll go, oh, 8, right? Let's pick 8. Okay, why is 8 the maximum that you can do? And then they'll say about feed times and schedules and sleep and blah blah blah. I go, okay, so 8 is your maximum. And they go, yeah. How many have you got in right now? 16. Okay, so you're over your double what your maximum is for everything. Right. So why? Oh, because I can't say no. Okay. What do you mean you can't say no? Can't say no or won't say no or won't say no?
Good point.
Have you told your coordinator that your maximum number is 8? No. Right. So how does your coordinator know that you're over your limit? Because you haven't told them. So again, choice. You've got to. So we can change the narrative. It's not. I will never tell a wildlife carer to stop doing what they're doing. But what I will do is I will call them on their decisions and their choices that are making them unwell.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's my job. And wildlife carers really, really need to start understanding that unfortunately, we cannot save them all. Horrible, horrible thought. I want to save them all.
Mm.
I want to save them all. I don't save any at the moment, except for the ones that I can when I do a road stop. And then I have to hand them over because I'm not a wildlife carer. But I still want to save them all. But I made the hard decision to not be a wildlife carer so that I could do wild talk.
Mm.
So we're making choices every day until we have things that are outside of our control. Government bodies, government departments, that's their decisions. You can lobby them to within an inch of your life, but if they decide that they don't want to put up more signs, you ain't going to get more signs.
Mm.
But you did everything that you can.
And there's also a community doing it. You don't have to do it all.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
You have to
Well,
feel guilty about not doing more.
You don't have to do it all. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Sarah.
I'm just saying that that's the way people feel. Like they feel compelled to be doing
Yeah.
everything and to be doing as much as possible
Yeah.
to the
Pick
detriment of their
something.
whole
Pick
the rest of
something to
life.
be really good at.
Yeah.
Pick something to be really good at and concentrate on that. If you've because we've all only got a limited amount of time. And we've got to start really, really appreciating our time.
Mm.
Like if you work outside the home, right, think about what your hourly rate is that you get paid and put that cost of time to every hour that you are awake. Okay. So when you decide to do something, is it worth that to you? Or is come somebody else do it for you for less? If it's going to take you 3 hours to mow your lawn, but it's going to cost a gardener, it's going to take a gardener an hour, and it's going to save you 50% of the finances. Is it better to employ the gardener?
Your screen's frozen.
Oh,
Ah.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
I'm on it.
your screen's frozen. Oh no, it's good now.
Yeah, it's good now. So did you miss all of that?
No, I don't think so. We got to the
Yeah,
hell yeah. I think that made sense.
yeah. So if you're getting paid $50 an hour and it's going to cost you $100 to get to get the gardener in, get the gardener in because it would cost you $150 if you did it. Sometimes it's worth saying, well, actually, this is more important than this.
Mm.
It's right back to what we were saying this morning, sometime earlier on. Sometimes we've got to just go, no, that's not as important as this thing.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to grieving and when it comes to loss, that's sometimes more important because that's self-care. That's looking after you so that you can then do a better job. Because unresolved grief and loss will invariably also lead to anger. It will lead to burnout. It will lead to a lack of empathy and sympathy. It will lead to compassion fatigue. Because these are all related. Because the unresolved grief and loss is a numbing of emotion, and we can't selectively numb emotions. Make sense?
Mm.
We're way too hard on ourselves, and we do not give ourselves the grace that we deserve so that we can do the good work with the animals. And when I say we, I mean wildlife carers. I see it every day.
Mm.
Maybe it's a generational thing, because quite a lot of us are Gen X, quite a lot of us are boomers. We don't do mental health really. And invariably we get calls when they're, losing the plot a little bit, which is fair enough,
Mm.
but we're not doing enough preventative work,
Mel,
you
do you
know.
have someone that you can that you debrief with on a regular basis?
Me?
No, Mel.
Oh, Mel, yeah.
Oh, I have my should-be husband. Um, we have been engaged for something like 13 or 14 years.
Oh well.
Talking about time. Um, yeah, so I can talk to him about anything. He's usually with me for the really hard rescues, taking the wombats to the vet and all the hard stuff. Um, yeah, but at the same time, I think as well because he's there doing it with me a lot of the time. We also don't really debrief because it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like we're both there, so it's like, how do you how do you debrief each other if we're both experiencing the same thing and we both feel the same thing? And
Yeah.
yeah, so it is hard. But apart from him, I don't really have anyone anyone really, not at it like a constant. There's the vets and the nurses, but yeah,
So
you know.
we've got a 30-minute module that teaches you how to do proper structured debriefing with the printout sheets that you can print out as well. It's $39. The pair of you could sit down and do it together. It means you
Yeah.
can practice it as well. If you go from one end to the other, it's 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes. But if you stop and do the exercises, then it's a bit longer. But you could sit down and do that together as a pair. And then when you have one of those difficult rescues, what you could do is you could debrief each other. So you structurally debrief him, and then he would do the same structure to you. So it's a way of actually doing it so that you both go, well, this is what I did well. This is what I would do differently next time. There's always going to be a next time. And it just means that you actually use it as a learning opportunity. So but you don't go into the emotion. You don't get back in the car at the end of one of those awful ones and go, oh my God, that was horrible. You basically get in the car and you go, okay, we're not going to talk about it. When we get home, we're going to do a debrief. Let's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
talk about our day. Okay, let's just let the drive home be a breathing exercise, and then we'll do a debrief when we get home. So, or however you want to do it, but you could even just sit there in the car straight away and do it. But you're better off to leave a little bit of a gap so that you can actually process and think about what's occurred.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And another reason I was keen to sit in on tonight as well is to better support the new carers and the young ones because obviously we want to keep them all and you know try and
Yeah,
support them as best as we can. And I've listened to a few of your guys' little chats. And it's so true, like everything you say, and like that trauma response of when you're trying um to talk to someone about a bad rescue or something bad that's happened and their immediate response is it's not one-upmanship, like they don't mean to do it, but everything you've said about that is like it's just so it's exactly what happens. And I just yeah, I'd love to be able to support the new ones and the younger ones like a
yeah.
bit better.
Well, I
to,
mean, I had to chuckle at the conference because somebody asked about the debriefing, and someone said, oh, "I'll give you an example," and he immediately, and I'd literally just finished saying, when you start doing a debrief, you give an overview of what happened. So, as I said, everybody in this room, do you know what a fence hanger is? And they all went, "Oh," and I went, right, okay, that's all you need to say. You don't need to go into the storytelling of, oh, it was a 36-degree day and the animal would like they dug a hole and they'd obviously been there for ages because there was like this much wound and you don't need to do any of that because everybody in this room, any wildlife carer, is going to know what you mean when you say, I've just come from a fence hanger.
Mm.
So going into, oh, it took me 45 minutes to get there. I said, that's all storytelling. We need to avoid the storytelling, right? So then literally 5 minutes later, outside at lunch, I immediately heard 4 people start storytelling outside the room.
It's human nature though, isn't it, Frances? Like people
Yeah,
just do it.
but storytelling is what adds to the trauma.
Yes.
It adds to the grief.
Yes.
Because when we're talking about grief and loss, we tell the story. And we don't need to be doing that because if that's going to traumatize us, it's going to be why we avoid processing the grief.
But that's a bit of a skill to learn, don't you think? Especially
Absolutely.
when
And
you're
that's why
mentoring others.
I say call us.
Yeah.
So but yes, it is. It is definitely it. I mean, like I am a trauma therapist. I work in images all the time. That's my basis. I tell clients straight away, you don't need to tell me the story. It's not that I'm not interested. I am, but I don't need you to re-traumatize yourself by satisfying my need to be told a story.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's not satisfying your need, it's satisfying my need to hear a story. It's that thing of entertainment. Other people's lives are entertainment, and if we experience a thing, we have to tell the story, and we have to tell the story well. And the way we tell the story well is by going, I caught a fish. You're not going to tell a story about catching a fish this big, but you are going to tell a story about catching a fish that's this big.
Yeah.
And the next time you tell the story, the fish is this big, because that's what we do. Like, we always embellish. We always, it's not a 24-degree day, it's a 36-degree day. You know, it didn't take us 15 minutes to get there. It took 45 minutes to get there.
And then
And we drove around for hours trying to find it.
Yeah.
And the hole that it had dug wasn't this big, it was this big. He'd clearly been there for hours. So it's never just, it was shit. It was a fence hanger. We know it's shit because it's a fence hanger.
Mm.
We know that's horrible. So we don't need the storytelling. And the storytelling is what traumatizes us. And that's what shuts down the grief. It shuts down the loss. Because we've now got this picture. We can't then acknowledge the life and the loss. Because we don't want the picture appearing in our heads.
Mm.
But if we just say fence hanger, we're kind of like, oh, fuck. That's shit.
Yeah.
Let's acknowledge that loss.
So just to recap, talking about grief and loss, it's really important to acknowledge every life. Pick
Well,
your
not every life, but the ones that are important.
No,
So
sorry, the ones that affect
the
you,
ones that have
I
meaning,
guess.
yeah.
Yes.
But actually, not just the life, but any loss. We need to acknowledge any loss
Oh,
that
yeah,
has
sorry, I was
that has
thinking
an impact on us.
Yeah, I was thinking in
But,
terms of the wildlife rescuer specifically.
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess.
but even so, that's not always a death.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But just to acknowledge whatever it is,
Yeah.
talk about it, come up with some sort of way to pay tribute to that, or a ritual or some sort of significant thing that you can focus on.
Yeah.
To process that.
Yeah. And we have a whole bunch of resources on our resources page around grief and loss.
On Wild Talk Caring for Carers?
Yes. No, on
wildtalk.org.
wildtalk.org.au.
Yes.
But I will send you the link. Because it still isn't on the website, which is terrible. But I'll send you the link straight after this.
Okay.
So you can include it on the post.
Yep. Beautiful. Yep.
So I think we've got there's a whole bunch of handouts. I've also written a book about grief and loss.
Uh-huh.
I just have to do a final edit on it.
Cool.
And then I'm going to self-publish it.
Brilliant.
So, yeah. But it's one of those things that I was really, really hoping that my little part-timer would be able to help me with, but we're not getting him now. So, yeah.
Story for another day. God.
Sorry for another day. Yes. But
all right.
it's it's one of those things, but it's one of those things I've been constantly working on for a while, and it kind of just dropped off for a bit, and then I thought I must get back into that again, and then it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm so glad you are. Mel, do you have any
more questions,
comments, anything that you want to go over? Because we've still got a few minutes.
Just that I think you guys are spot on with the acknowledgement of the loss. um it's such a big part of what we do, and and we wouldn't do it if they didn't matter.
Yeah,
So
Mm.
um yeah, I
yeah,
feel like, and being allowed to feel that sadness for them, because they all have so much potential, and it's always too soon. You
mm,
know,
mm,
even if it is the ending of suffering, which we can acknowledge that as well, but yeah, it's not an easy gig. And I think so many of us come into this a little bit starry-eyed. Um
yeah,
and yeah, and then you fall in love with them, and it's yeah, there's a lot of heartache, but I think
mm,
you know, you guys are doing an amazing job helping carers, and yeah, helping us to do more and support each other. And the less angry, upset, traumatized carers, the better. The less,
Yes.
as humans as a whole, I guess. But yeah, I
absolutely.
think
Yeah, well,
I
feel free to give us a call. I mean, Mel, it's what that we're there for. If you want to know more about changing that narrative of guilt, we can certainly help with that. Mm.
Yeah, thank you so much. Because yeah, they're all so precious and amazing, and yeah, just to be able to help them more is so empowering, It's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I get
You're
it.
So we're
doing
here for
an amazing job as well. So we
Yeah.
really, really appreciate
oh
you.
You're a
And
wombat. You're a wombat person, Mel?
yeah.
Oh,
oh, love them.
I even have
Oh, oh, that's so
yeah.
cute. Do you have
so
them? So you have them in care as well?
Yeah, we mainly do adult care, so sick and injured adults, and a lot of mange work. But yeah, a
whereabouts
lot
are
of
you
what
based?
in Wollondilly,
Okay.
in yeah, near Camden kind of thing,
Yeah, yeah,
in and around there. But yeah, uh, a lot of compiling issues for our wombats with development and mange and humans, and yeah, so we're seeing we're seeing it every day, and you just feel it with them, because it
yeah,
is hard. So
yeah,
Mange
exactly.
is such a
It's
distressing thing to see too. Like when it's a severely
oh,
impacted
when
animal,
it's
you just
severe, it's
oh my
terrible.
God,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
heartbreaking.
It is awful. It's I work quite closely with one of the ladies down here. I think you're probably aware of her if you don't know her, but Yolandi from
oh
Wombat
yeah.
Rescue
Yeah,
down here.
Yeah.
She's amazing,
yeah.
absolute powerhouse of a woman. But she's set this amazing program up now where they're getting people just to do the very short term volunteering, where they're just getting them to go for the walks and monitor their own wombat holes basically. So they're sort of like get assigned, and then so they get that ownership of that sort of
Like
space.
a citizen scientist
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. So it's
That's
an
so
amazing
cool.
program. So,
Yeah.
but because the people are so passionate about their wombats, you know, and like I get it because where I take the dog for a walk because there's like a couple of mobs of kangaroos up there. Where one will be and where the other one will be, and it's kind of like I'm going to go up and see my kangaroos because
Yes.
and you really do because you see them regularly and they see you and they're like you know
Yeah.
whereas other people go past and they're like, well, I'm out of here, so even with the dog now, I've got a bunch now that just kind of go, oh yeah, no, that's fine, she's not going to chase us, so they just carry on munching. So it's like that I feel like there are kangaroos, but when the guys go through with their bikes on their bikes, the kangaroos leg it. So they're just it's that familiarity that they get used to the safety, like that person's safe.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
just
they get to know you, don't they? They get to know you, and you see all their personalities coming out, even when you're just in the field with them. They're
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I say, like personality is absolutely makes a difference in how you grieve too, because the relationship that you have with that animal will be completely different to the one that you'll have with the next animal or the one after that
Mm.
and the one before. So you'll grieve them all differently. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But
Connection is very real.
it
It
is.
is. It
It
is.
is. It is. And anyone who tells me, if I've had people who say, "Oh, they're dumb animals," and I'm like, I've had lizards that are smarter than you, mate. You know, I don't hold back anymore. You know what I'm like.
I love it.
No, seriously, I've like, you can't tell me that they don't know when you're coming with food.
Yep.
They don't, that they know when you're coming to clean them out. They know when snails are coming and versus when the blueberries come in versus when a bit of apples come in.
Yeah.
The carawongs are the same. I've got wild carawongs in my gut. They know. They know. They see you coming out with that little white dish. They're like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. So they absolutely know. And they're wild animals, but they're not stupid. They're not stupid. They
Yeah,
know what's safe, they know what's good, they know what's bad. And that's not just natural habit, natural behavior. It's because they've got some smarts.
Yeah. Instinct.
Yeah. 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 And it's a little bit like that. I've got a plaque out the front that says, "If my dog doesn't like you, I don't like you." I think, and
So true.
honestly, I absolutely believe that dogs know when somebody can be trusted and when they can't be.
100% they do.
yeah.
So my mum's dog, my mum's dog hated my ex-husband when I was still married to him. Yep,
He
should
knew
have
something
listened.
you didn't.
Should have listened. Should have listened.
All right, we've been going for an hour and a half, so we
Hour and a
should
half. That's about right.
wrap it up.
Yeah.
Mel, I'm
Well,
so glad you were here to
yeah.
Oh,
give
thank you.
your
Thank you
perspective.
guys.
It's been
Thank you
really
Thank
for
you.
good.
just
It was a
having
little bit
me.
short notice. We'll try to give a bit more notice for the next one.
Yeah, but this is going to go up as a recording if you're okay with it, because
Oh, that's totally fine. Yeah, yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for being part of it. It's really good.
Oh, thank you guys. I'm so grateful and appreciative. And yeah, just thank you so much for everything. It's, yeah, very much appreciated.
No worries, you too.
See you, Mel.
Thank you guys.
All
Bye.
right.
Bye.
Bye.
Stop the recording, Sarah.
Ciao.